Hello guys, and welcome. It is that SRB2 dude here today, bringing you yet another Splatoon 3 video. Still love saying that. Alright guys, so in my last video we talked about if charges are going to be too overpowered if what is seen in the trailer is true, where they do not have a laser. It's a great and in-depth talk about what will happen and how Splatoon 3 will play out, and I highly recommend that you guys go ahead and check that video out as well. However, at the very end of it, we started talking about if the specials in Splatoon 3 are going to be too strong. Mainly because how they were described, they seemed way stronger than the ones that we currently do have in Splatoon 2. And in this video, I kind of want to talk about what this is going to all mean and how the game will play out with these specials like this, and how it compares to the specials currently that are in Splatoon 2. So with all that being said, let's get into the video. So I think the first thing that we should talk about is the specials that we currently already know of. Starting with the Killer Whale 5.1. It's a modified version of a special weapon called the Killer Whale or the Stingray. I think it's kind of a mix of both of the two. And it's basically a special weapon that shoots 6 lasers that will follow your enemies autonomously around the map. We also have the Trizooka, which is basically an Inkzooka or a modified version or dumbed down version of it, that gives you 3 shots of 3 to shoot wherever you please. Taking 2 direct shots of this seems to be a kill confirmed. We also have the Zipcaster, which is basically the Spider-Man special, which allows you to grapple hook and swing your way across the map, allowing you to get to faraway places a lot quicker than just generally on foot or just swimming. We also have the Big Bubbler, which is basically a modified version from Splatoon 1, the Bubbler. It's practically a much larger version where you place an object onto the floor, which creates this large force field which will block off any enemy shots that come your way. We also have the Crab Tank, which is this big machine mech that an Inkling will pilot. It also has a baller mode, which will allow you to traverse your way around the map, and 2 firing modes, a powerful rapid fire gun and also a bombing cannon. We also know of one other special which hasn't been mentioned by Nintendo themselves, is Tentamissiles, but this was a special that was within Splatoon 2, and we already know the existence of it. Now, as I've mentioned all the new specials, there's technically 5 of them that we already know of. But I want to talk about how much more offensive these sorts of specials are in comparison to some that are in Splatoon 2. In Splatoon 2, a lot of the specials seem a lot more passive and definitely a whole lot more team-based. You have things like Inkstorm, Baller, Ink Armor, and Booyah Bomb. Inkstorm is basically an area denial special more than an offensive special that's going to try and bring the fight to you. Baller is a special that can be offensive in some cases. In general, especially in Splatoon 2 now, it's a special where your offensive tactics aren't so 100% most of the time. So a lot of the time now these days, people kind of just use it for their own defense and just another method to paint an area. Ink Armor is a 100% supportive special, giving yourself and all your teammates a little bit of armor for a short period of time. Can be used offensively, especially if you push an area with your entire team using Ink Armor. Booyah Bomb's another area denial special, where you literally throw a spirit bomb to stall an area, paint an area, and basically to move enemies out of an area unless they want to take a Booyah Bomb to the face. There are of course some offensive specials like Inkjet and Ultra Stamp that are also probably some of the most offensive specials, even Splashdown in some ways. But these are pretty much some of your only options in terms of offense, as more of the offensive tactics that go into Splatoon 2 come from how you use these specials together in order to control an area of the map. Like you could be linking Ink Armor and Inkjet, or Baller and Splashdown, or Ink Armor and Hammer, or Tentamissiles and Stingray. Like a lot of how these specials work in Splatoon 2 is that it's really trying to force people to move and have your teammates play off the specials that are also being used to really take control of areas and all that. In comparison to Splatoon 3 and how those specials are looking, it seems like there's definitely a lot more of an emphasis on individuality and special weapons where it feels like they can do more by themselves. On top of that individuality is how safe it is also. The offensive tactics that you would use in Splatoon 2 specials, it feels like you have to put yourself in a lot more vulnerable and risky situations in order to be offensive if you're doing an individual play. Say for instance, if you're using Inkjet by itself, you're basically going to be this very vulnerable thing flying in the air. Of course, you're shooting back at your target. But if you're coming against something like a Rapid Pro, Jet Squelcher, or any sort of ranged weapon that can easily snipe it out the sky, then you're pretty much in a lot of trouble, considering the fire rate of the inkjet is not that quick. If you're doing a solo play with a baller, you literally have to ball your way extremely close up into the enemy in order to offensively take them out. Same with Splashdown, same with Hammer. Splashdown, there's two ways. You can walk yourself close up to an enemy, and then of course maybe panic splashdown and slam on them. As we probably already know, that doesn't work all the time, especially in the highest rank. For the Ultra Stem, it's a little different. If you actually want to use a special and stamp people, you again have to be very close up. Of course, there could be things where you're assisted by ink armor too, but if we're talking about individual plays, you again have to be very close up. Of course, you do have that long range option where you can toss the hammer at somebody, but honestly, this is something that at times can be extremely hard to even aim, and it's also something that's pretty easily avoidable. Which, when you say it like that, it doesn't seem so strong or scary, other than when it's extremely close up to you. Now, when we look at specials in Splatoon 3, we got things like the Trizooka, where it's a long-range option to take out opponents very instantly. Even though you have 3 shots, if you make those 3 shots count, you should have absolutely no problem taking people out with range. Also, considering the Trizooka's bazooka shot travels through the air quite quickly. You also have the crab tank, which again, from afar, it seems like you can take out things pretty safely. You do have a slight vulnerability if, I guess, an opponent is behind you, but if it's a thing, if you're only taking things out from in front of you and are aware of your surroundings too, it does not seem like you're gonna have so many vulnerability problems. On top of that, you can also just baller around, and it seems like you're not gonna take too much damage from that either. You also have the Zipcaster, which we don't exactly know how vulnerable this special is, but in general, it's the speed that you're able to travel around the map, which I feel like is the thing that is worth noting. I think the main point is that it has the ability to go from one side of the map to the other, so taking out a weapon that can be seen as fairly vulnerable to closer range combat, the Zipcaster will have no problem in these types of situations. Now, just speaking of those, the individual aspect is definitely much more noteworthy, but the point of this video is to see if these kinds of specials are going to be too strong, as the few that we know of so far definitely do seem a lot stronger than the Splatoon 2 specials. I want to go through all of them with you guys and compare a few of them, and also tell you what I think is going to happen and how these specials would work in Splatoon 3. So we're going to start with the Trizooka, and I'm going to compare this with the Inkzooka back in Splatoon 1. Now, the Trizooka, it only has 3 shots. And as I said before, you really do need to make those 3 shots count. Otherwise, it's not going to really do much for you. You need to be able to learn to aim and lead your shots in the direction of where you think your opponents are going. It also seems with the Trizooka, you have to hit 2 of those bullets from that 1 shot in order to actually take out your opponent. In comparison to the Inkzooka, which was commonly around 5 shots, could be more if you actually use special duration in that game, you could afford to miss as long as you go ahead and get your next shots in. It feels like with the Trizooka, you really cannot afford to miss, and you have to make sure that you hit those shots, otherwise it's going to be a waste of a special. The next special is the Killer Whale 5.1 in comparison to Stingray, because not gonna lie, even though this weapon is called the Killer Whale, from the looks of it, it's very reminiscent to the Stingray in Splatoon 2. Honestly, I'd say the Stingray in general is probably a whole lot more stronger. Even though it's one big laser, you're pretty much able to control this wherever you stand. Any good player who's able to use a Stingray and know exactly where their targets are, you pretty much stand no chance to it unless you have something like Ink Armor, which will protect you for a second or two. But if that's not the case, and that Stingray user knows exactly where you are pretty much dead. Which the counterplay to that would be jumping to your teammate or jumping back to spawn instantly when you know that person's using Stingray. In some situations, that might not even be possible, because on top of that, you're being overpowered or having to deal with an enemy teammate as well. So there are some moments where you will just get lasered and there's just literally nothing you could have done about it. The Killer Whale 5.1 is automated, and from what it seems like from the trailer, it seems like it's going to be using 2 of its laser beams per an enemy that is alive, and these 2 beams are going to be automatically following you. The thing about this special I think that's going to be so prominent is that when you're using it, it's going to pretty much tell you where the enemies are on the map, which in most cases is really good, and on top of that, it's going to constantly make them move. In a way, it's kind of like a Splatoon 2 special where your teammates can actually capitalize on its usage, and in general, I think that's a good thing. The Crab Tank, so we already know it has 2 firing modes, the bomb mode, which is 2 shots, the rapid firing mode, which is 3 shots. In general, that's really good damage for an automatic weapon. But this is kind of my observation of this special, where it seems like you're really going to be a crab when it comes to this thing. When you're in these 2 firing modes, it seems like you're going to only be sidestepping. If in any case where you're actually moving forward or walking backwards, it seems like that movement is going to be a whole lot slower than just strafing side to side. I think that would actually make a lot of sense, considering, of course, the name of this special weapon. The only times when you're going to really be turning around is when you're rolling around in your baller, which I think it's going to be the way to set up on your opponents when you're choosing to take one of them out. I feel like this special is going to be really strong, but I also think it's going to be a thing where whoever's piloting this weapon is going to have a decent amount of skill on understanding the angles and the range of where they can stand and how to be parallel with their enemies to take advantage of them. The Zipcaster, other than you being a grapple hooking demon, you are originally just still using your main weapon. And I think the thing that's going to really thrive with this kind of special is the player's actual mechanics to carry them. I feel like if you are not confident with your aim and accuracy and your movement in general, especially in close range combat, this is probably not going to be really a special for you. I do think it's going to be really strong, and I genuinely do think it's going to be extremely strong against weapons that do not do so well in close range. This would include every charger besides like a Squiffer or maybe Bamboozler, some slushes like the Blob Lobber or the Explosher, like things like that. This special is going to be really strong against. It's a great kind of special that allows players that may have shorter range weapons to break the distance between those kinds of weapons and also overpower them, as they can be so quick to get to them in the first place. So I do think it's going to be really strong, but I also think it's going to be a thing where your mechanics really do have to show when using this special. And I guess talking about the last new special that we have right now is, of course, the Big Bubbler. Now, this special definitely can be seen as really strong, and not gonna lie, I'm a little worried for it. Mainly because I'm just really hoping that this special can't be used on a tower when playing tower control. Because imagine an enemy teammate places it on the tower, and then it's just this huge big bubbler just moving around with the tower, and it's generally just something that you can't even do anything against. I'm hoping for tower control, if any player uses big bubbler, the actual object would basically just bounce off the tower and land near it, just so it's not on the tower and protecting it that way. Or if you're playing splat zones and you put like 2 down to basically protect the zone. I mean, I guess in some cases that might not be so horrible. It could be just a thing just to stall the zone as well. You can kind of prepare yourself to actually use a special after its usage, because you're probably going to already know that there's somebody in the Big Bubbler itself. But apart from all that, I do think this special is something that we're going to probably prefer a lot more in comparison to Ink Armor. Even Bubbler as well. With Ink Armor, it's pretty much a special where you just run around, get your armor, and as long as everybody on your team is alive, they basically get a free shield, no matter what position of the map they are in. But with the Big Bubbler, it seems like this is more of a supportive special, only if your teammates are close to you. And these are the only teammates that are going to benefit from this. So in general, it doesn't actually seem that bad. I think it's just going to be a thing where we're going to have to wait to see how it gets really used in some smart ways where it can be also be utilized as well. So all in all, what do I think in comparison with Splatoon 2 specials and Splatoon 3 specials? As I said in the start of this video, the Splatoon 2 specials are very much team oriented, and it seems like you have to chain them a whole lot more to make creative offensive options. But in Splatoon 3, with the addition of these new specials like Trizooka, Tank and Zipcaster, we are definitely getting some more individual space specials, or specials that can basically do things themselves. But on top of that, we also have things like Killer Whale 5.1, Big Bubbler, and of course Tentamissiles, which was also shown in the OLED trailer. So it kind of makes me think that in Splatoon 3, we're going to probably get a mixture of both the extremely offensive specials, while also getting some specials that have some supportive aspects and some team-based play depending on how it's used. You have your Trizooka, Tank offensive players, and you also have your Killer Whale 5.1 and Big Bubbler Tentamissile supportive players that are going to allow the enemies to be moving around the map constantly, while your Trizookas and your crab tanks can use those types of specials to really capitalize on their enemies' movement. And I think the specials for Splatoon 3, if that's the direction that they're going in, I really appreciate it. Because not gonna lie, there are times in Splatoon 2, whether you're playing in competitive or just a solo environment, there are times where it feels like you cannot do anything by yourself or have the ability to try and make something happen, especially when you have a teammate down or anything like that. I very, very much like that there's going to be a mixture of both. I do like that the offensive options are a whole lot stronger and a lot less vulnerable too. These are probably not going to be the only new specials that we're probably going to receive in this game. There's no doubt in my mind that we're probably going to get some more offensive ones that we're going to see, and probably some more supportive ones as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see when all this news drops. So that's pretty much what I think of all the specials in Splatoon 3 and how strong I think they're going to be as well. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Do you guys think the Splatoon 3 specials are going to be too strong? Do you also like the direction of more offensive specials in Splatoon 3 while also having supportive ones at the same time? Let me know all of this in the comment section below. And with all that being said, guys, I very much appreciate you guys watching this video. Make sure to like it if you enjoyed it. Join my public Discord, as it's a great place to talk about Splatoon 3, and it also notifies you whenever I go live on Twitch, as if you didn't know, I stream Splatoon content on Twitch 5 days a week. And of course, obviously, follow me on Twitch as well. With all that being said, guys, I appreciate a ton you guys watching this video, and I shall see you guys in a future one.